You ever sit alone at night after Isha, and your mind quietly starts reviewing your life? Not your sins in a dramatic way, but in a slow, exhausting, almost invisible way. Did Allah really accept me? What if I am not as close as I think? Why do I still feel spiritually unstable even after everything I do? And the strange thing is, the more you try to fix this feeling with worship, the more it seems to return inside you. It's like you are trying to clean a mirror, but every time you wipe it, your hand leaves another mark. So you pray again. You make Dhikr again. You send Salawat again. But instead of certainty, you find yourself quietly monitoring yourself. Did I feel enough sincerity? Was that accepted? Why don't I feel different yet? And slowly, worship becomes something else, not connection, but evaluation. Now, here is what almost nobody tells you. The greatest awliya of Allah were not reciting powerful prayers because they feared rejection. They were using them because they understood something about reality that most people never notice. Protection is not something you request when danger appears. It is something you realize you are already inside, and Salawat Munjiya, the prayer of salvation, is not about calling protection closer to you. It is about discovering you were never outside it. You are not unprotected. You are just unaware of your protection. And by the end of this video, you will see exactly why the awliya treated this salawat as survival itself, and why your anxiety in worship might not be distance from Allah, but misunderstanding of nearness itself. Now listen carefully, because we are going to go somewhere most spiritual content never goes. First, why awliya treated Salawat Munjiya as protection itself. Then, how Ibn Arabi explains unseen spiritual currents responding to remembrance. Then, why anxiety inside worship is actually distorted to tawakkul. Then why repetition is not quantity but perception alignment. Then, what actually changes in the soul when this becomes lived awareness. And finally, how fear dissolves, not into emotion, but into certainty. That is where we are going, not belief. Recognition. In this video, we are going to look at exactly why senior awliya treated Salawat Munjiya as spiritual protection itself, not just a prayer. Then we will explore how Ibn Arabi describes unseen realities that respond to remembrance beyond what the eyes perceive. Then we will uncover how anxiety inside worship is actually a distortion of tawakkul, not a sign of weakness. Then we will see why repetition of salawat is not about increasing reward, but correcting perception. Then we will understand what actually transforms inside the soul when this salawat becomes constant awareness. And finally, we will see how fear doesn't disappear through emotion, but through realization of what was already true. Stay with this, because every layer will remove something you didn't know you were holding. The real issue in modern spirituality is not that people don't worship enough. It is that they cannot feel safe inside worship. So even when they pray, there is a hidden background process running. Am I doing this correctly? Is Allah accepting me? Why do I still feel the same? So worship becomes emotional self-monitoring. Now imagine a man in his mid-30s in Lahore. He has not missed a single prayer in years. People respect him for his discipline. He is consistent, careful, committed. But the moment he finishes prayer, he sits there and immediately scans his inner state. If he feels nothing, he assumes distance. If he feels emotional, he assumes acceptance. Either way, he is measuring instead of witnessing. This is not worship anymore. This is self-auditing in front of Allah now. Ibn Arabi enters here not as mystic poetry, but as metaphysical psychology in Futuhat al-Makkiyah. Ibn Arabi explains that reality is not a static external field. It is continuous divine unfolding tajalli, responding not just to words, but to the state behind perception itself. So what you think you are asking in dua is not the full story. What is actually being shaped is your inner positioning toward reality. Modern psychology mirrors this in predictive processing. The brain does not experience reality directly, it predicts it, then filters experience through expectation. So if your inner model says I am spiritually unsafe, even mercy will be interpreted through anxiety. But Ibn Arabi goes further. He says the real is not responding later. The real is already sustaining you. Now. Salawat Munjiya is not a request to activate protection, it is the correction of the illusion that you were ever outside it. And once you see this, the entire structure of fear inside worship begins to collapse. You are not trying to reach protection, you are trying to notice it. But if protection is already present, why does worship still feel anxious inside? That is where Ibn Arabi goes deeper. Think of a man in his early 40s in Islamabad. He is disciplined in prayer. He wakes for tahajjud sometimes. He sends salawat regularly. But after every act of worship, something subtle happens. He checks himself. Did that feel real? Was that sincere enough? If it wasn't, what does that mean about me? This man is not neglectful. He is trapped in evaluation. This is exactly what Ibn Arabi is pointing to. In Futuhat al-Makkiyah, Ibn Arabi writes that divine protection, hifz, is not something that starts when danger appears. It is the continuous sustaining of existence itself, meaning you are not occasionally protected. You are being held in existence at every moment, not symbolically. Ontologically. So Salawat Munjiya is not activating a shield. It is revealing the fact that you were never outside the shield. Think of it like this: a fish asking the ocean to keep it wet. Request is already reality. The illusion is separation. Modern psychology would describe this as cognitive mislabeling. When safe conditions are interpreted as unsafe due to internal narrative bias. Science describes the distortion. Ibn Arabi tells you how to exit it. Stop negotiating safety. Correct perception of where you already are. Now here is where it gets deeper, because the nafs does something subtle here, takes even worship and turns it into distance. So instead of salawat becoming remembrance of nearness, it becomes a test. Did I feel something? Was it enough? The nafs doesn't stop your worship, it enters your worship. And when it enters, it turns presence into performance. But Ibn Arabi would say something shocking. Even your inability to feel peace does not mean absence of peace. It may mean you are still interpreting reality through a self that expects separation. You are not outside protection, you are thinking from outside it. But if protection is constant, why does anxiety appear inside worship itself? Now we enter the hidden psychology of the heart. Think of a university student in Islamabad during exam season. He sits down at night, overwhelmed. He recites Salawat Munjiya, hoping it will calm him. But instead of calm, something else happens. He begins to think, I hope I am saying this correctly. If my heart is not present, will it still work? So even Dhikr becomes pressure. This is where Ibn Arabi makes a precise distinction in Fuchsius al-Hikam. He explains that sincerity, ikhlas, is not emotional intensity, it is the absence of transaction. The moment worship becomes, if I do this, I will get that, the nafs quietly enters. Now, worship is no longer presence, it is expectation. Management modern psychology calls this metacognitive overload, when awareness becomes self-observation instead of direct experience. Researchers note that excessive self-monitoring increases anxiety and reduces emotional clarity. Ibn Arabi described this 8 centuries earlier. Science describes what is happening. Ibn Arabi tells you what to do about it. Stop watching yourself. Worship, because the watcher is not neutral, it is the ego, trying to confirm its own correctness. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Even your "Am I sincere?" question can be ego in disguise, because it assumes sincerity is something you must measure. But sincerity, in Ibn Arabi's language, is what remains when measurement stops. The nafs does not block worship, it measures it. But if worship is not about measurement, what is Salawat Munjiya actually doing to reality itself? That is where perception shifts entirely. Think of a woman in Karachi who has recently experienced loss. She begins reciting Salawat Munjiya every day, but inside, she feels nothing changing, so she assumes it is not working. This is the illusion Ibn Arabi dismantles in Fuchsius al-Hikam. He explains that divine response is not always experiential. Sometimes it is ontological, meaning it changes existence before awareness catches up. So the shift has already happened. You just have not interpreted it yet. Think of a radio, already tuned to a new frequency, but the speaker still plays old static. The signal changed before perception updated. Modern psychology calls this delayed reinforcement perception error. Humans expect immediate emotional feedback for structural internal changes. But not everything works through feeling. Some things work through being. Salawat Munjiya does not first change your emotion. It changes what your emotion is sitting inside of. That is why you may not feel anything at first, because feeling is downstream of structure. And here is the paradox. Not every acceptance is felt. Some are already. True. Reality does not wait for your feelings to update. But if change is already happening without feeling, why did awliya treat this salawat like survival itself? Think of an elderly scholar in Damascus during hardship. He is not emotional when he recites salute. Munjiyah. He is calm. Not because life is easy, but because perception is stable. This is the state Ibn Arabi describes when he speaks of the awliya. In his metaphysical framework, divine names are not concepts. They are operational realities. So, Al-Mungi, the one who saves, is not a future rescue function. It is a present structure of reality. Meaning, salvation is not coming later. It is the lens through which reality is being experienced now. Modern psychology aligns with this insecure base theory. When attachment security is stable, threats are interpreted differently, not necessarily removed. Same world, different perception. So, the Wali does not escape danger. He stops interpreting existence as danger. And this is why Salawat Munjiya becomes survival. Not because it prevents hardship, but because it prevents illusion during hardship. The Wali is not saved from life, he is saved inside life. But if protection includes hardship, loss, and confusion, then what does being saved actually mean? The biggest misunderstanding about Salawat Munjiya is this. People assume it prevents suffering, but Ibn Arabi would reject that entirely, because in his metaphysics, suffering is not absence of protection, it is sometimes part of protection. We equate protection with comfort, but divine protection is alignment, not comfort. Sometimes alignment requires confusion. Sometimes it requires loss. Sometimes it requires silence where you expected clarity. Salawat Munjiya is not remove hardship. It is do not lose awareness of Allah inside hardship. The more you use it to escape reality, the more disconnected you feel. The more you use it to understand reality, the more reality itself becomes soft. The real does not remove what you are meant to witness. He removes illusion from witnessing. Protection is clarity, not escape. Now this is where everything becomes practical. Before stress, before exams, before conflict, recite Salawat Munjiya once and say internally, I am not entering danger. I am entering experience. After worship, if anxiety appears, stop analysis immediately. Recite Salawat Munjiya and do not evaluate your sincerity for 90 seconds, morning and night. Repeat Salawat Munjiya 33 times. Not for reward. For one realization. I am already within divine holding. You are not changing your state, you are correcting your interpretation of it. Now go back to that night we started with. You sitting alone, reviewing yourself, questioning, acceptance, feeling spiritually uncertain, but now something is different. The problem was never lack of acceptance, it was interpretation of acceptance. Through emotion, Salawat Munjiya was never meant to convince Allah to save you. It was meant to reveal that you were never outside saving. And when that realization settles, something quiet happens. You stop asking, am I safe? And you start noticing, I was never outside safety. You were not waiting for salvation. You were forgetting you were inside it. Think back to the last time you sat in prayer and immediately judged your sincerity. In that exact moment, were you actually distant from Allah, or were you only distant from the awareness of His nearness?